June 28th, 2024. Full, or mostly full, garden walkthrough. Here's what's going on in the backyard. The aster is starting to bloom. I thought I planted some last year, but it turns out it was something other than this. Got a couple of things growing in here. We've got a butternut squash. I've got a spaghetti squash. Ooh, look at you. My first girl. There's a couple of boys already, and you're not invited here. Goodbye. Now, sometimes, I know, I killed the beetle. I also killed the flower, but there's going to be plenty more flowers. Tis but a boy. They're very popular. Another girl. Back in behind the spaghetti squash, I planted some corn seeds. Mostly because the seeds were about 2 years old already, and I've read that they don't last very long, so I figured, what the heck, let's plant them. Looks like they got about a 20% germination, so we'll see what happens with them. If nothing else, it'll give me a bit of a privacy fence. And a zucchini right in the middle there. Can't have a garden without some zinnias. This purple sprouting broccoli was started in November last year indoors. It grew and grew and grew, and then in early March I planted it outside. It didn't die. It didn't do really well, but it struggled for a bit. However, it's recovered. It's twice the height it was before. As far as I have determined, this broccoli is photoperiod sensitive. So I'm not going to start getting any broccoli production until sometime in September. Finally, in this in-ground bed, I have a perennial berry going. This thing got munched down completely over the winter by rabbits because I did not protect it at all. It's come back, obviously, but I don't think I'll be getting berries this year. That's fine. I'll just make sure I protect it correctly this time. It is getting sunny, which is great. In order to add a bit more privacy, I am creating a bean and sunflower fence. In no particular order, I have some Monte Gusto beans. Those are yellow beans, thinner beans. They're pretty good. I have got some rattlesnake beans in here somewhere. I've got some yard-long red beans. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to cook them correctly this time. They look really cool though, so if nothing else, I'll get the visuals. There may be some Kentucky blue. I'm not 100% sure. And then behind those, I've got some sunflowers coming up. Opposite corners. Here I've got I believe it is a San Marzano tomato. And on the other side, a Valencia tomato. This is a yellow tomato. And this is really what? About 5 square feet, 6 square feet of space. I've got about 6 bean plants, multiple sunflower plants, 2 tomato plants. You grow a lot in a small space. The asparagus are growing well. They've grown taller than last year. I've added some string between the trees, or shrubs, because they were flopping all over the place. This has helped it not flop as much. Following the asparagus bed, we have the currants and other related berries bed. Black currants, champagne currants, gooseberries. I need to figure out when the pink champagne currants are ready, because they're starting to look pretty ready. They've got a bit of a smushiness to them. It's not a massive harvest, but you know what? My black currant harvest for last year wasn't super big. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do a jam or a jelly. This year it's primarily figured out if I like the flavors. I might just do a jelly. Keep it simple. But this year, well, the plant's gotten significantly larger. And I've got significantly more berries. I'd say 3 times as many as last year. So I will be making a good amount of black currant jam this year. Do some pink champagne currant jam. See how that tastes. As for the gooseberries, I don't anticipate any fruit this year. From what I've read, usually 3rd, 4th year is when they start to produce. So I'm hoping next season we'll have some gooseberries. And then I can find out if I actually like gooseberries. And in this corner, we've got some hardy key growing. Hardy key. We've got some hardy key growing. We've got some hardy kiwi growing. These are, at this point, 3, possibly, I'd say they're 3 years old, maybe 4. We've got 2 females of 2 different varieties, and a boy in the middle. One of the problems is that area only gets sun for about 3 to 4 hours, maybe 5, different parts of the day. I don't know if it'll be enough for fruiting to happen. Good thing is, these guys are easy to clone. Bad thing is, kind of resets the timer, so you gotta wait an extra 3 years before you can actually start getting any production. But live and learn. Next, there is the raised beds and container garden. I am only in my 5th year of gardening. Before that, other than mowing the lawn, I didn't really do anything out here. None of these gardens existed. Everything was overgrown. Multiple trees. Sometimes I forget I've only been doing this for 5 years and I get disappointed when I watch someone with an amazing garden. And then I remember, oh yeah, they've been doing this for 20 years. Because everyone's climate is a bit different than everyone else. I'm trying things in different places. Sometimes I'll mix peppers with tomatoes and berries with other things that normally wouldn't go together. All in an attempt to figure out what works best for my yard. Moving on to the container / fabric bag gardening. Most of my containers are at least 10 gallons, ideally 15. You can put more plants in one container, and you don't need to worry about watering as much as you would with a smaller container. So let's go through the containers. Santa Fe peppers. There are 2 plants going in this one. These were all started back in February, indoors, which is why I've already got so much production. I started them a little later than last year, but I'm still thinking this year I might start them, rather next year I might start them even later. Mixed in with 2 of the Santa Fe, I've got a Tobago plant. This is another pepper plant. Mildly spicy. Doesn't get too big. And then in the back here we've got a spicy globe basil plant. So, 4 plants in one 15-gallon container. 2 medium-sized peppers, 1 small pepper, 1 small basil plant. The spicy globe basil, as far as I'm aware, does not get particularly large. Tastes good, actually. Definitely smells like basil. Yeah, it's pretty good, actually. Maybe a bit more of an anise licorice taste to it than like your typical Genovese basil, but less licoricey than some other basil. There's the mammoth basil. Ooh, that tastes like licorice a lot. Alright, our second container. one American flag leek. Two actually. These were put out in March as well, and I'd kind of added soil to the container as it was growing. So we'll see how it looks like when it gets harvested. One cayenne pepper plant and one jalapeno plant from my own seeds that I got from a jalapeno a few years ago. It remains really well producing plant. I've got some big jalapenos going on here. I've also got another spicy glow basil in here. Container number 3. Booth B cucumber. That's right. It's not my creation. Somebody on YouTube told me that this thing existed. I looked for the seeds and I found them. And so far, it's going pretty well. So far, there's 2 that are definitely pollinating. The other one's hidden somewhere in the background. I'm not going to worry about it for now. The plant is doing pretty well. No diseases so far. These were started inside. Only about 4 weeks before I put them out, so beginning of May. They're doing well. Only the cucumber in this pot. This is a 10-gallon, slightly smaller. Container number 4, ground cherry, Aunt Molly's variety. I started inside, and despite an early injury, where I thought I cut the top off, it seems to be doing just fine. I should have some ground cherries in a couple of weeks. I do, however, definitely need to add some protection because squirrels are going to eat these. There were many volunteer ground cherry plants because I grew some last year. Squirrels love them, they bury them everywhere, forget about them, never eat them. So many volunteers. I've still got a few going that I'll let drop seeds so I get more volunteers next year. Next container's up. We have D is for dog. D is also for door. W is for wall, which I cannot see through. Thank you, Mr. Pickles. Market more cucumber and some red Swiss chard. Ruby red Swiss chard. There is some pollination, but the cucumbers haven't really gained any mass yet. There's going to be a few more days before anything interesting shows up. Following up on our next container, I've got some Jimmy Nardellos. They're looking pretty good. Look at this thing. They're a decent size. I'm looking forward to these ones. I've never eaten them before. Ooh, that's I guess we're harvesting this one. Oh, it's worth testing what they taste like when they're still green. But yeah, look at that thing. Jimmy Nardello is quite large. Apparently it's on a spicy pepper. You could probably stuff this thing, actually. That could be cool. In addition, I have got a King of the North, I believe this is. Green pepper. Well, red pepper once it ripens. The seeds for the King of the North were not great. I think like 50-60% germination. We'll see how they come out. I believe I've got 2 plants. One in here and one somewhere else in the yard. Somewhere in here there's another little Tobago plant. Next container. 3 Lesia pepper plants in this container. I'd say they don't get excessively large, but we should double this size at least. Triple, actually. I made I wouldn't say a lot of powder, as much powder as I could make with what I had. It's really nice. The sweetness in the Lesia pepper really comes out in the powder. Our final container, some cayennes, more jalapenos, and Santa Fe. 15-gallon, 3 plants. And it looks like I've got a cayenne that's starting to ripen. And this guy's a pretty good size too. Cayennes I grew last year were much smaller actually. Same plant, or rather same seed though. So I will be freezing these as I harvest them. Just cut off the top, sticking in the freezer. Once I have enough to make some hot sauce, we'll start making some hot sauce. I have the same plant with the Santa Fe peppers. They're about as spicy as a cayenne, from what I recall. But I wanted to grow enough this year that I can make some sauce. Let's see if it's any good. Wait, what am I saying? They're not as spicy as cayenne. They're about as spicy as a jalapeno, maybe a little bit less. They're a weird color before they're ripe, but they develop a nice orangey color once they are ripe. The 2 raised beds. Most of the lettuce has been harvested. It's definitely started to bolt. Carrots are doing well. The red long tropia onions are doing well. They're a small onion. Some might even call it a shallot. Depends on who you talk to. Behind the carrots, there is some beets. They are due to be harvested. We have had some damage from, I forget the name of the bug. I'll put it on the screen. First year I grew beets. I got leaves. No beets. Second year I grew beets. I got a couple of small beets. So this year I'm hoping for several small beets. If I get more than that, I'll be extra happy. And some red onions, Withersfield, something like that, red onion. These are full-sized red onions. A volunteer dill, one of many. They make for great helipads for all the bugs in the yard.
Bug.
We got some garlic, music garlic. Planted some garlic last year, well, the year before. Harvested and kept one of the cloves and planted that back into the garden. I did pretty well last year, but the cloves were all pretty small, so I'm hoping this year they'll be a little bit bigger. One of 3 Roma tomatoes. There's already some Roma tomatoes growing in the in-ground bed that I'll show shortly. I've started 3 more that will be placed somewhere in the garden with the hopes of harvesting before the end of summer. More dill. These are different varieties of dill. I've got about 5 or 6 varieties planted in the garden. I'm gonna taste all of them. See if there's any difference in taste, any difference in growth habits. Certain dill, like bouquet dill or ducat dill, has a tendency to bolt fairly quickly. This guy here is a bouquet or ducat dill that's volunteered, and it's already building helipads. On the other side of the first bed, we've got some more cucumber growing. I don't recall the type of cucumber. It's either another Boothby or another variety. This guy was transplanted yesterday, and it looks a little floppy right now, but it just needs water, so it should be fine. And another cucumber. Once again, I'm not sure what variety this is. We'll find out soon enough. Lettuce that needs to be harvested is bolting. This is, I believe it's Grand Rapids lettuce. This has done really well. Even when it starts to bolt, the flavor's still pretty good. It lasted a long time. It can handle getting washed. I want to say Boothby, but I guess time will tell. Anyways, Grand Rapids lettuce, great lettuce. Tasty. It doesn't get all floppy after you rinse it. It's got a nice firm texture to it. And who's ready to die? Oh, hi there, mister. Oh, fly away. You get to live this time. And I got 3 tomato plants here. Our first plant is black from Tula. I would say it's the last one in the yard to start producing tomatoes, but they're producing now. Height-wise, it's about as tall as the other plants. Our second tomato plant is the Valencia. Or not, sorry, this is not Valencia, Sky Kamish. I've got about 12 varieties of tomatoes. I don't know how people with more than that can remember everything. I guess labels would help. I have labels, I have markers, I just haven't used them. Looks pretty healthy. Really enjoyed the tomatoes from it last year. Once again, I am trying black crim. I accidentally topped the plant last year. At about 6 inches tall. So I think I got a tomato. Bed number 2. On the left extension of the raised beds that I created earlier this year, there are potatoes. I did not think potato plants got this tall. I don't know if they're supposed to get this tall. Perhaps I put them in the wrong location. But regardless, they seem pretty healthy. I've got 5 types of potatoes going. Some fingerlings, some large white potatoes. Let's see what the harvests are like. I'm not certain how the harvest will be. I'm not sure how much room exactly they have. They probably only have an equivalent of about 3-4 gallons each, which is maybe not ideal, but there's nothing at the bottom of the bed, so if they go deeper, then they go deeper. And they previously mentioned tomatoes, 2 extra Romas. They'll be planted out soon. There's still a bunch of lettuce here to be harvested. Strawberries are finished. I'm the volunteer dill. And some more King of the North. There's 2 peppers on this one. I'm not seeing any flowers yet beyond that, so we'll see if that's all we get out of this plant. And in the background, yet another Tobago plant. In the middle, we have a black beauty zucchini plant. It is normally under cover, partial cover, because squirrels love to take a bite. Every zucchini they see. So having this chicken wire here still allows bugs to get in and pollinate, but it reduces the chances significantly that a squirrel will get in. As long as the motivation is limited, I find that as long as there's some obstruction, I find that they just bypass it. There's so many other things in the garden they can eat. You again. Cucumber beetles are everywhere. Learn to live with them, or learn to live with other creatures that will kill them. Hello, mister. How are you doing? There's no more strawberries left, sorry. I need to get some everberries for you, huh? So you can have snacks year round? Yes, sir. At the end of our raised bed number 2, we have a bunch of different green onions. Like many other things, I'm trying out different varieties to see which one I like best. There's also some garlic chives, regular chives. And in the middle, another lesser plant. I don't know how much production I expect out of this one, given that it's partially shaded most of the day because of the other plants. But we'll see how it goes. Peas, they're finishing up their year. And in waiting, there's a couple of bean plants here. So once I take out the pea plants sometime next week, the beans will be able to take over, climb up, and give me some beans. One of my goals this year is to learn how to properly freeze beans. The ones I froze last year got very soft. Hidden amongst everything else, I've got some celery here. I believe it is Tango variety celery. I don't expect much out of it. I just kind of half thought of it and put it outside. I've got some more celery, some Utah tall celery in my herb garden that was transplanted from inside where it was growing since December. Another in-ground bed. I have discovered, well, I haven't discovered it. Many people discovered it before me, but sweet peas. I honestly did not think these guys would do anything. It took a long time to grow and they didn't grow very tall. All of a sudden, they really started getting going. I'd heard they were pretty to grow, so I figured I'd give them a try. Turns out they are, and surprisingly lovely scent. Within this fairly crowded bed, I've got some kale going. I've got 3 Roma plants, an unknown variety. From left to right, we've got some Valencia on the end, some pink brandy wine, a San Marzano, a Paul Robeson, and on the end here, some slightly younger plants, Opalka. The leaves on this plant look terrible compared to some of the other plants. However, apparently that's normal, and it makes sense. When you actually touch the leaves, they are much finer than a typical leaf. She's starting to flower now. The Opalka is a paste tomato. I want to up my tomato game for sauces. I think that's going to be my primary goal with tomatoes. Sauces and maybe salsa if I can figure it out. This Paul Robeson was started earlier than most tomatoes. I believe it was sometime in March, maybe even late February. I started Paul Robeson and the pink brandy wine about a month earlier than all the other tomatoes. This is the brandy wine. I wanted to see if starting it earlier would actually make a difference, and it seems it has. I've already got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 fruits set on this plant. I'm double stemming it, 2-stemming, whatever, with about half of my tomato plants this year. I've read some articles about single stemming, double stemming, all the stems, and it seems that single stem is generally the best option, but double stemming seems to be the popular thing this year with everyone, so we'll give it a go and see what happens. I'm hoping with the Paul Robeson this year that I can save some seeds, assuming I actually like the tomato, which I did the last time I had it, but I'm out of seeds. On the other side, mainly Roma tomatoes, 3 plants. They seem to be doing quite well, actually. I had some issues with labeling this year.
What?
This year. Every year I have issues with labeling. The good thing about Roma tomatoes is they're pretty obvious. Once they start creating fruit, the shape of the fruit, the shape of the plant. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So far, 16 tomatoes and about as many flowers coming out. If I can get 30 tomatoes out of this plant, I will be very happy. The other plants have a little bit less, but I believe, as I recall, they are a little bit younger. So they'll catch up, hopefully. So dragon tongue beans, I've got these placed throughout this area. I don't know if they'll get overall enough sun, but they are growing. I'm starting to see some indications of flowers. I'm going to add a support soon to ensure that once they actually start producing, I don't have to worry about everything falling over. And then hidden in the middle, this guy. This is a volunteer ground cherry, which I will leave here to create more volunteers for next year. There's 1 or 2 more in here. We'll trim it down as we need to. And finally, in my attempt at a hugelkultur bed, raised bed, I have got a Amish potato. No, it's an Amish tomato from seeds I kept from last year. It seems a bit scraggly, not quite like the plants from last year, which was from bought seeds. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's a difference in the flavor. I'm not exactly a tomato expert, so I couldn't tell you exactly what it's supposed to taste like. But I do know what the shape is like. And so far this one's okay. This bed I also have a fruiting volunteer raspberry plant from last year. I also stuck some cuttings from last year's raspberry in here, and it seems to be growing. And extra kale. I don't know why I grow so much kale, I don't eat that much. And then production raspberries are starting to ripen up. Black raspberries, which are currently pinkish red, but they'll be a nice deep black color once they ripen. Although they are tasty raspberries, they are not thornless, although they're not as bad as blackberries though. I've already harvested a few plants, or rather, I've already harvested a few individual berries. They were delicious, but the real ripening is only beginning. Will I have enough for raspberry jam this year? Probably not. I'm going to end up eating all of these. Compost has been transferred back into the first container once again. I'm trying to switch it around every 2 weeks or so. Should have something by fall. Although I did already use a barrel full this spring. So the compost system works. And this still needs to be cleaned up, but we'll get there eventually. I finished harvesting the hascaps for this season. I didn't get much, but I did get some, which is more than 0, which is what my prior harvests were. So next year, with a bit more maintenance, I'm hoping to get more hascap berries, and this time maybe I'll harvest them at the right time. A little too early this year. Still tasty, but still greenish in taste. I will be probably trying to space these out a bit more. The rhubarb has recovered well from its harvest this season. The growth on these things are kind of crazy. I'm pretty sure this ground is pretty fertile. I added a fair amount of mushroom compost about 2 years ago. And a gold nugget squash. Flowers are starting to appear. I'm probably going to have to protect this from the squirrels and the rabbits. And perhaps when it's ripe, I'll harvest some of the amaranth seeds in the background there. Mill my own amaranth flour, that could be pretty interesting. I just need a mill. So probably not going to happen. Perhaps I'll add it in a granola mix or something. And finally here we have the herb garden. Previously mentioned celery that was started indoors in December is doing well. In fact, since it's gone into the ground, I'd say it's been thriving. The celery flavor has gotten much better. It hasn't bolted. If it does, I'll harvest the seeds, and I'll have celery seeds to eat. These are one of several poppies that have volunteered. This bed, before it was a herb bed, had a couple of poppy plants, and they spread quickly. So now, there are always several poppy plants that show up every year. I'll keep a few of them, but most of them I'll get rid of. I harvested some chamomile last week. You'd never think it. I haven't tried the tea yet for it, but it really smells lovely. The usual are in here. We've got your parsley, we've got some thyme, lemon mint going over here. It's not really a typical mint, but it does have a lemon flavor to it. my attempt at growing ginger from a store-bought piece. We'll harvest in the fall, see what we get. And of course, early summer isn't complete without bolting cilantro. Our first early summer garden update. This season has only gotten started, but everything is going like mad. We'll be harvesting cucumbers in a week, tomatoes in 2 to 3 weeks, raspberries over the next month, garlic harvest in maybe a month or so, and I'll soon have beans and peppers galore. My wood chipper broke, or is currently not working, so these are sitting around until I figure out what's wrong with it. Luckily, it's got a 3-year warranty and I just bought it last year, so I'm not too concerned. Anyways, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.